"We don't need whistleblowers on this project," Victor said, sliding my termination notice across the desk. "My name is Nathan Brooks, 49 years old, and until 5 minutes ago, the lead foreman at Horizon Build's largest commercial project in Boise. 26 years in the industry, 18 as a foreman, and this was the first time I'd ever been fired for doing my job right." I just nodded, took off my hard hat, and placed it on his desk without a word. The site office trailer smelled like stale coffee and ink cartridges. Outside, I could hear the bulldozer working on the foundation extension. The crews would be moving to steel framing next month, and now I wouldn't be there to ensure it was done safely. "You gonna say anything?" Victor asked, leaning back in his chair, trying to look relaxed, but I caught the tense grip he had on his pen. Nervous. New guys always get nervous when they think someone might make a scene. "You think you can just erase me from this project, Victor? After everything I've built here?" I said, my voice steady but sharp. His eyes widened, caught off guard. "This isn't about erasing, Brooks. It's about progress." "Nothing to say," I replied, standing up. "I'll clear out my locker." He looked surprised, maybe even disappointed. People like Victor thrive on confrontation. They need it to justify their actions. Take that away, and they're left facing their own decisions. "Look, Brooks," he said, voice softening into that fake conciliatory tone. "It's not personal. We just have different visions for running a tight schedule. You're traditional, very by the book, but deadlines are deadlines." "Deadlines don't mean anything if someone's dead, Victor," I shot back, locking eyes with him. His jaw tightened, but he didn't respond. I nodded again, understood. Then I turned and walked out. The job site was bustling. Carpenters prepping for the 4th floor, plumbers installing the main water lines, concrete crews finishing a pour at the west gate. Good men, skilled men, men with families who deserve to go home to them every night with all their fingers and full use of their limbs. Men who were working without proper fall protection alongside unlabeled chemical barrels near unmarked live cables. I cleaned out my locker methodically. Work gloves, spare boots, safety manuals, the photos of my son's college acceptance and my daughter's engagement party taped inside the door. 26 years of showing up, doing things right, making sure everyone made it home, and Victor had been on site less than 3 months. As I walked to my truck, Miguel from the plumbing crew jogged over. "That true? He let you go?" "Yeah, because of the safety reports." I shrugged, tossed my bag in the cab. "That's messed up, Nate," Miguel said quietly. "They're saying you were stealing from the budget, man. Victor's spreading lies already. What are you going to do?" I looked back at the site, at the men working in conditions I knew weren't right, at the corners being cut that would eventually cut someone. Looked at Victor watching me from the trailer steps. "What I should have done 4 weeks ago," I said. "I started in construction right out of high school, hauling timber and cleaning sites, learned carpentry, then plumbing, then project management. Worked my way up, honestly. My father was a welder who fell 4 stories when I was 14, shattered his spine, spent the rest of his life in agony because some site manager decided safety nets were too costly. So when I became foreman, I had one rule above all others. Everyone goes home." Horizon Build hired me 6 years ago to clean up their safety record after a string of minor incidents kindized their insurance premiums. I delivered. Organized sites, strict procedures, training programs that actually worked. The company's recordable incident rate dropped to near 0. Productivity rose, not fell. Turns out people work better when they're not worried about dying. Then the Pine Valley project came in. $18 million, 0 cents, aggressive timeline, high profile, and suddenly the company brought in Victor Ramsey from their Portland office to speed things up. First week, he seemed fine, driven, goal-oriented. Called me the safety expert like it was praise. But by week 2, the cracks started showing. "Nathan, do we really need to check every harness? Daily, bi-weekly's fine, right? This spill containment is excessive. Just tell the guys to watch the chemicals. Can we start the plumbers before the lockout process? We're slipping behind." Each time I'd explain the regulations, the reasons, the risks. Each time his smile would tighten, his eyes a little sharper. "You're slowing us down, Nathan," he said once, slamming a clipboard on the table. "The board's breathing down my neck and you're playing hall monitor." And I walked into a morning briefing and heard him tell my crew to get it done, whatever it takes. Just hit the milestone. I stayed afterward, closed the trailer door. You can't tell them to bypass procedures, I said calmly. I didn't, he snapped. I'm just not babysitting grown men who know their jobs. Those procedures keep them alive. He laughed. Actually laughed. Come on, Nathan. You've been in this game long enough to know how it works. We say the right things for client walkthroughs and corporate audits, but day to day, we do what it takes to meet the schedule. Not on my site. That's the issue. His voice turned cold. You think it's your site? It's not about ownership, Victor. It's about responsibility, I said, stepping closer. You're gambling with their lives, he smirked. And you're gambling with your career. After that, I started keeping records, took photos with my phone, missing guardrails, faulty scaffolding, blocked fire exits. Made notes of every conversation where he resisted safety measures, documented which regs were being violated. Saved copies of my emailed concerns that went unanswered. My wife Sarah noticed something was off. You're distant lately, she said one evening. Just work stuff. Bad? I nodded. Getting there. Nate, you're scaring me, she said, grabbing my hand. Is it worth losing everything over? I looked at her, the weight of it all sinking in. If I don't fight this, Sarah, I'm not the man you married. The breaking point came on a Thursday morning. I arrived early to inspect the new scaffolding on the east wall. Found 3 of our younger guys working 25 feet up with no fall protection, no harnesses, no guardrails, no safety net, nothing. I shut it down immediately, sent them to get proper gear. Victor arrived while I was setting up temporary railings myself. What the hell, Brooks? Why aren't they working? No fall protection, I said, securing a clamp. They're getting equipped now. We're already behind on this section, he said, his voice spiking. The client's coming tomorrow. Then we better make sure nobody falls and dies before their visit. He stepped closer, lowered his voice. Look, I get that you've been here a while. You're set in your ways. But the industry's evolving. We can't compete if we over-engineer every safety reg. I stopped working and faced him. Over-engineer? We're talking basic fault protection required by law. Required when OSHA's sniffing around, he sneered. Come on, Nathan. Be practical. Something in me went quiet. I'd been trying to work with this man to guide him to find common ground, and suddenly I saw the truth. He knew better. He just didn't care. Those are my guys up there, I said softly. Javier's got a kid starting school next month. Mateo's saving for his daughter's wedding. They trust me to make sure they go home to their families. They're grown men. Their safety's their responsibility. And you're their leader, I snapped, my voice rising for the first time. You think you can just wash your hands of this? You're signing their death warrants. I stared at him, really seeing him for the first time. That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. Look, he sighed, just sign off on the inspection so we can keep moving. I'll take responsibility if anything happens. No, you won't, I said flatly. You'll blame them or me, whoever's convenient. His face changed then, hardened into something ugly. Are you refusing a direct instruction? I'm refusing to falsify a safety inspection. Yes. Then we've got a problem. I nodded slowly. We do. That afternoon, I filed a formal report with our corporate safety officer, documenting all the violations I'd seen over the past month, attached photos, dates, conversations. By evening, I'd received exactly 0 response. The next morning, I was called into Victor's office and fired. As I drove home, a strange calm settled over me. No more internal conflict. No more trying to work within a broken system. The decision of what to do next was suddenly perfectly clear. I pulled into my driveway and sat there a moment, looking at the house Sarah and I had built together, the place where we'd raised our kids, the life we'd made by doing honest work. I picked up my phone and made a call I should have made weeks ago. Occupational Safety and Health Administration. This is Samuel speaking. My name is Nathan Brooks, I said. I need to report multiple willful safety violations at a construction site. I can help you with that, sir. Can you tell me the nature of the violations? I've got photos, documentation, dates, names, everything you need. There was a pause, the sound of typing. Are you currently employed at this site, Mr. Brooks? No, I said. I was fired this morning for refusing to falsify safety inspections. I see, Samuel said, his voice sharpening with interest. In that case, let me transfer you to our whistleblower protection division. They'll want to hear this right away. The OSHA investigator, Linda Carver, met me at a diner downtown the next morning. She was all business, sharp blazer, recorder on the table between us, notepad already half filled before I sat down. "Walk me through the timeline," she said after introductions. I laid it all out. The gradual erosion of safety protocols after Victor arrived, the specific violations I'd documented, the reports I'd filed internally that went nowhere, the confrontation that led to my termination. "And you have evidence of all this?" she asked. I handed her a flash drive. Every photo dated and tagged with location. Daily logs, email exchanges, voice memos from conversations. It's all there. She tucked it into her bag. "This is thorough, Mr. Brooks." "I've been in construction my whole life," I said. "I know what happens when safety gets sacrificed for speed." She nodded, made another note. "We'll review everything and determine next steps. The whistleblower protections mean your former employer can't retaliate." She stopped when she saw my expression. "But they already did." "They fired me before I filed the report," I said. "Different situation, not necessarily. The law protects internal safety complaints too. We should discuss a wrongful termination claim." She passed me her card. "In the meantime, we'll be conducting a surprise inspection within the next few days. We may need you to verify certain details." I thanked her and headed home, feeling better than I had in weeks. The system was working like it should. Things would get fixed. Then my phone rang. It was Miguel from the plumbing crew. "Nate, you need to know something. Victor called an all-hands meeting this morning, told everyone you were fired for falsifying expense reports, inflating costs, said there's an audit coming." My stomach sank. "That's a lie. Everyone who knows you figured as much. But he's setting you up, man. Said anyone caught talking to you about company business would be considered part of the fraud. He's trying to isolate any potential witnesses," I said, thinking out loud. "Gets worse. He brought in some corporate suit who gave a speech about disgruntled employees and protecting the company's image. They're making everyone sign new NDAs." "And Nate?" Miguel added, his voice low. "They're saying you were working with a rival company, feeding them info to sabotage the project. They're trying to paint you as a traitor." After we hung up, I called Linda Carver immediately to update her. She listened carefully, then said, "This changes things. They're actively obstructing. We'll move up the inspection." But an hour later, she called back, her voice tense with frustration. "We've hit a roadblock. Someone at Horizon Build filed a counter-complaint, alleging you violated company policy by removing confidential documents and photos from the site. They're demanding everything be returned before any inspection can proceed." "That's not how OSHA works," I said. "No, it's not," she agreed. "But they've got a sympathetic ear somewhere up the chain. Someone's trying to stall this." "So what happens now?" "We fight it, but it'll take time. They're also claiming the site has already addressed any potential safety issues, which means we'd need to establish that violations were present at the time of your complaint." I hung up and sat at my kitchen table, staring at nothing. Victor wasn't just covering his tracks. He was building a case against me, painting me as the problem. My phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. "This is Mateo from the site using a buddy's phone. They're erasing the evidence, replacing scaffolding, adding missing guards, painting lines, working overnight. Thought you should know. They were wiping out every violation I'd reported. By the time any inspector arrived, the site would look perfectly compliant. Victor wasn't just protecting himself. He was ensuring nothing changed, and the men would still be at risk, just more carefully hidden." Later that night, my daughter Emily called, her voice trembling. "Dad, there's a post on X saying you were fired for embezzlement. It's got thousands of likes. People are calling you a crook." I clenched my fist, anger boiling. "It's a smear, Em. They're trying to bury me." "What are we going to do, Dad?" she asked. "We fight," I said, my resolve hardening. "We fight with the truth." The next morning, I drove to Rusty's Grill, a diner near the industrial park where construction crews grabbed breakfast. Sure enough, some of my old team were there, Miguel, Mateo, and Javier at a corner booth. They waved me over. "Should you guys be seen with me?" I asked, sliding in. "Might get you in trouble." Miguel snorted. "We're off the clock and they can't fire all of us." They're cleaning up the place like the governor's coming, Mateo said, leaning forward, working round the clock to fix everything you flagged, so they know exactly what was wrong, I said. They just didn't care until someone might check. Javier, the youngest, looked uneasy. That's not all. I overheard Victor on the phone yesterday. He was talking to someone about you, saying they needed to dig into your work history, find something to discredit you completely. A cold feeling settled in my stomach. They're looking for dirt. I don't think it's just Victor, Miguel said quietly. I think this goes higher, way higher. What do you mean? He glanced around, then pulled out his phone, scrolled to a photo and passed it to me. It showed an email on someone's computer screen. The subject line read, Pine Valley Project Schedule Recovery Plan. The body of the email was brief. The board has approved the revised approach. Safety protocols may be adjusted as needed to meet the November completion date. Documentation should reflect full compliance regardless of field conditions. The Pine Valley model will be implemented company-wide if successful. Bonus structure attached. The sender was Michael Thornton, Horizon Build CEO. Where did you get this? I asked, my mouth dry. Victor left his laptop open when he got called to the site yesterday. I happened to walk by. I stared at the photo, pieces clicking into place. This wasn't just a rogue project manager cutting corners. This was corporate policy hidden behind a paper trail of fake compliance. They were testing it at Pine Valley before rolling it out everywhere. November is impossible, I said. That's 3 months ahead of schedule. That's why they brought in Victor, Mateo said. He's their enforcer, gets impossible results by breaking every rule and blaming someone else when it goes wrong. Miguel added and handed the phone back, thinking hard. Has he done this before? They exchanged glances. There's rumors, Javier said finally, about a project in Portland last year. Guy fell, got hurt bad. The foreman took the blame, something about improper training, but word is the real issue was equipment not up to code. The foreman got blacklisted, Miguel added. Couldn't get hired anywhere in the region. Eventually moved south, I think. I pulled out my phone, made a note of the Portland project. I need to find that foreman. What are you going to do, Nate? Mateo asked. They're covering their tracks. By the time any inspector shows up, the place will look spotless, and they're gunning for you. Javier added, my cousin in HR said they're building a termination case to make it look like you were skimming funds from the company for years. And they're threatening our jobs if we don't back their story, Javier said, his voice shaking. They called me in yesterday, said I'd be out if I didn't sign a statement saying you ignored safety rules. I looked at these men, good men who just wanted to do their jobs and go home safe. Men being put at risk by executives who'd never climbed a scaffold in their lives. I'm not sure yet, I said slowly, but I know this. What they're doing isn't just wrong, it's criminal, and now I understand it wasn't just Victor. This is the whole company choosing profit over lives. As I drove home, a plan began forming in my mind. I couldn't just expose the violations at Pine Valley anymore. I needed to expose the entire system, and to do that, I needed more evidence. Evidence they couldn't erase overnight, and I knew exactly where to start looking. Finding Carlos Mendez, the former foreman from the Portland project, wasn't hard. A few calls to old industry contacts pointed me to Reno, where he'd finally found work as a basic laborer, a huge step down for someone with 17 years of management experience. He agreed to meet me at a truck stop outside the city. When I arrived, I barely recognized him from his old company photo. The proud, confident man had been replaced by someone who looked a decade older, with deep lines around his eyes and a weary slump to his shoulders. Thanks for coming, I said as we settled into a booth. Wasn't sure I would, he admitted. Horizon Build's not a name I like hearing. I understand. I was a foreman for them until recently. His eyes narrowed. Got fired for raising safety concerns. Sound familiar? The look that crossed his face told me everything. Let me guess, he said bitterly. Victor Ramsey. I nodded. Same playbook, different victim. He stared into his coffee. They'll destroy you, you know. Like they did me. By the time they're done, you'll be unhireable. A thief, a liar, maybe even criminally negligent. Only if I let them, I said. I'm fighting back and I could use your help. He laughed without humor. What can I do? I tried filing complaints, tried going to the press. Nobody cared. One guy gets hurt, it's a statistic, and Horizon Build has very good lawyers. But it wasn't just one guy, was it? I pushed gently. It wasn't just your project? He was quiet for a long moment. No, he finally said. It wasn't. Over the next hour, Carlos told me everything. How Victor had been brought in to accelerate their project too. How safety violations became routine. How Carlos's reports were ignored or lost. How when Diego Alvarez fell from faulty scaffolding, Victor had already prepared paperwork showing Carlos had approved it despite known defects. I never signed that inspection, Carlos insisted. They forged my signature, but by the time I could prove it, I was already fired, already blamed. Diego's family sued me personally, not the company. Did you keep records? I asked. Photos, emails, anything? Some. He hesitated. After everything fell apart, I was so focused on surviving that I just walked away. But I kept a backup of everything. Never did anything with it. Would you be willing to share it with me? Combine it with what I've got? He studied me. To what end? OSHA's a joke. They're underfunded and outgunned. The press doesn't care until someone dies. And Horizon Build has friends in high places. I'm not going to any of those places, I said. I'm thinking bigger. If this is happening at multiple sites, with the same playbook, the same people involved. Understanding dawned in his eyes. You're talking about a pattern, a corporate conspiracy. I nodded. Federal workplace safety violations are criminal offenses if they're willful and repeated. With enough evidence, this goes beyond fines. People go to jail. The FBI Department of Labor has its own investigation division, and they work with the Justice Department on criminal cases. For the first time, I saw a spark of hope in his face. You really think you can make it stick? Not alone, I said. I need your evidence, and I need you to go on record. He was quiet for a long moment. They took everything from me. He finally said, my career, my reputation, my savings. Diego nearly lost his life. His jaw tightened. What do you need me to do? I need you to be ready to testify, I said, and I need you to reach out to Diego. If he's willing to talk, his story could be the key to breaking this open. Carlos nodded slowly. Diego's still in physical therapy. He might not want to relive it, but I'll try. For him and for you. For the next week, I worked around the clock. I combined my documentation with Carlos's, creating a comprehensive case file showing the pattern across multiple projects. I reached out to other former Horizon Build employees through industry forums and social media groups, found 3 more foremen with similar stories from other states. Meanwhile, I kept getting updates from my old crew about the Pine Valley site. The hasty safety improvements were for show only. As soon as Victor thought the heat was off, corners started getting cut again. Men were still at risk. One night, Miguel sent me a voice message. His voice hushed. Nate, they're moving faulty equipment off-site tonight. I saw them loading it onto trucks after hours. They're covering their tracks, but I got video. I texted back immediately. Send it to me, but be careful. Don't let them catch you. On Friday morning, 12 days after I was fired, I walked into the Department of Labor office in Boise with a thumb drive, a stack of printed documentation, and Carlos Mendez at my side. By afternoon, the wheels were in motion. Monday morning, 7:45 a.m., I parked across from the Pine Valley site and waited. The timing had to be perfect. At 8 o'clock, crews were gathered for the daily briefing. Victor stood on a makeshift platform, clipboard in hand, looking confident, probably telling them to push harder, move faster. At 8:12, exactly as planned, 3 black SUVs pulled up to the site entrance. 8 people in windbreakers emblazoned with DOL on the back. Department of Labor, Office of Inspector General, the federal investigators who handle criminal workplace safety violations. 2 local police cruisers arrived seconds later. I watched through binoculars as they approached the security gate, showed credentials, and moved in. One team headed straight for the site office. Another spread out across the site, cameras and tablets in hand. Victor saw them coming and froze mid-sentence. Even from a distance, I could see the blood drain from his face. He recovered quickly, plastered on a smile, and stepped forward to intercept them. The lead investigator, a woman I'd spoken with several times over the past week, didn't even slow down. She handed him a document, the federal inspection warrant, and walked right past him toward the office. 2 investigators peeled off and approached the workers who had stopped to watch the commotion. They started taking statements right there on the spot, documenting everything before anyone could be coached or threatened. Through my binoculars, I saw Miguel point to the southeast scaffolding, where I knew the guardrails were still missing despite being marked as complete in the safety log. Another investigator was taking photos of the electrical panel I documented as improperly grounded. The site was shut down within 30 minutes. At 10:03, Victor was escorted to one of the SUVs, his face pale. Not under arrest, not yet, but taken for formal questioning. 2 hours later, investigators led Michael Thornton himself through the site, pointing out each violation, each falsified record, each piece of evidence that matched exactly what I'd provided. As Thornton walked past the crews, I saw Javier step forward, his voice carrying, "This is for Nate, and for all of us you put at risk." Thornton didn't look at him, but the investigators took note, their cameras clicking. I didn't need to stick around for what came next. The system was finally working the way it should. 4 months later, I sat in a conference room at Apex Constructs reviewing safety protocols for their new retail complex downtown. As their newly hired safety director, I had authority to approve or reject any construction practice across all their projects nationwide. My phone buzzed with a news alert. I allowed myself a small smile as I read the headline. Construction executives indicted on federal charges for willful safety violations. The article detailed how Horizon Build's CEO, COO, and 3 project managers, including Victor Ramsey, faced criminal charges for conspiracy to violate workplace safety laws, falsification of records, and obstruction of justice. If convicted, they were looking at substantial fines and up to 6 years in federal prison. The company itself had been barred from bidding on government contracts for 12 years. Carlos Mendez had been fully exonerated. The settlement from his wrongful termination lawsuit would fund his retirement. More importantly, he'd gotten his reputation back. My phone rang. Mateo, now working as a foreman under me at Apex. "You see the news?" he asked without preamble. "Just now. They're saying the Pine Valley building might get condemned, too many structural issues from rushed work." There was satisfaction in his voice. "Karma's a beautiful thing." "So is doing the job right the first time," I said, "and Nate," Mateo added, "the crew's throwing a party tonight. They want you there. You're their hero." I chuckled. "I'm no hero, Mateo. I just did what was right." After we hung up, I walked to the window overlooking my new project site. Workers in proper safety gear moved with confidence across a well-organized site. Every guardrail in place, every harness inspected, every worker properly trained. No one would fall on my watch. No corners would be cut. No one would choose profits over lives. I didn't need to see Victor in handcuffs to know I'd won. The proof was right in front of me. Men doing honest work, knowing they'd go home safe tonight. That was all the victory I needed.